All right, I wanted to go over something. Yet again, I'm sorry for the shaky video. I figured I'd go through how I figured out how to bend the sheet metal. And how you could make this without a mill. You could use a file. You could use a rotary file. And just a piece of stock. I had a piece. Here it is. This is like the stock I use. I keep little chunks. If you don't have layout fluid, and do all your layout with scribes, you can always cheat and just color it in with a Sharpie, and then scratch your lines with a scribe. You don't necessarily need a mill, like I said. You can lay everything out, lay it on the edges. If I was to do this by hand, when it came to the jaws, I would lay the whole thing out and put my gully here, 7/16 in, and I'd probably end up using my rotary file and get as close to the break line as possible, and then just finish up the step by hand with a file. But I'd use the whole piece, put it in a vise, and come across that way with the rotary file and clean it up with the file and whatnot, and just keep measuring things as you go. Now, when it comes to the actual bend of the sheet metal, you have something called the bend tangent, which is the center of the metal. Okay? And when it gets into the bend, yeah, I got a drawing. The outside, so this is the center of the metal. So you take the overall decimal of the metal. I'm going to use 30 thousandths because that's easy. So we'll say that from here to here is 30 thousandths. Okay? So half 30, the last time I checked, with my old school math, would be 15 thousandths. Okay? Whatever. So this would be 15. Okay? And overall would be 30. And then here it would thin out, and here it would thicken out. Now there's math involved. And this is your bend allowance formula. Okay? Now, before you freak out and you're like, hey, that's some crazy ass math there. I wrote everything down here. Bend allowance in degrees. BA is your bend allowance, which is that formula, which is that number. Material thickness, 1 inch through. Constant, inside bend radius, and angle in degrees. Now, you can try to do the math and fail horribly, or you could Google it. But it's important to know that, especially when you're making up sheet metal. Because, I mean, if you just bent that at a 90-degree angle and did it, and we're doing a precision layout, you're going to screw something up down the line. Like I said, make your mistakes small, and then at the end, they won't be huge mistakes. They'll only be big mistakes. I wanted to show you maybe how to do that with a rotary file and whatnot, because I realized not many people have a mill. And maybe they want to do this sheet metal repair that I posted earlier, and they don't necessarily have a mill. Now, the other thing is, if you are to use rivets or screws, I would still go ahead and, like I said, I'm sorry for the shaking. I've developed a really bad shake. An offset the metal like you did. Now, thin metal, there's two ways to make a flush repair. Thick metal, and there's a formula for it. We're not going to get into it. You can countersink it, so a screw head would fit in there. And then obviously you'd have the metal underneath. Or you can dimple it. Now, if I was to dimple it, I would use, if it was by hand, I would probably end up doing it by hand, and I'd end up using something like this. Because I thought about this. Oh! Uh-oh. No, we're not going to use something like that, because we done messed up. Hey, Aaron, we done messed up. I forgot I had this in there. Yeah, crap. One hand. All right. You see all these little holes? This here. All right. I'll be back. I got to get this out. This is driving me nuts. Well, of course, I got the jig out of this. It's a homemade jig that I made for indexing. But this is just it's called the tap block. It's for tapping. Different size holes. A piece of round stock, which you don't need a lathe to make that point. And you could probably make a duller point. And you could probably put that in your drill and you just use a file, a piece of round stock. It doesn't have to be hardened because you're only doing sheet metal. And then what you want to do is you want to find your hole. I use this one. It's slightly bigger than the hole. I could almost use this hole if I wanted to. No, that's too big. Because you want to remember when you're dimpling, you're actually going to bend the metal into the hole. I'd probably use this hole, which is what I did. And then find the center and tap away. Boom, boom, boom. And you'll end up with, I don't know if you can see that, you'll end up with a divot. All right? Yeah, you'll end up with a divot. So what you want to do on that, for thin sheet metal, would be your first piece will come through. She'd come down like this, and it's going to poke through, obviously. All right. And then obviously you're going to have a hole in here, and then this will be your fastener head, which I believe, I can't remember if it's 45 or 35 for a screw or a pop rivet head, but usually they say it on the package. And then your second piece, you want to slightly dimple less, and it's just going to poke out just a little bit. It'll poke out less than this one, and then you can put your fastener through the two. I like to put, let's say this is a 3/8 hole, which it's about 3/8. I like to put my my edge distance, I think minimum is 2.5. So it'd be 2.5 diameter. So 1, 2.5. Okay. So that'd be a half. That'd be 1, 2. That'd be your hole, and that'll give you the most strength. Like I said, when it comes to sheet metal, make small mistakes. Plan ahead. And just try to think her through. A lot of this stuff, I'm just trying to pass down some information. I mean, we're all getting older. We don't have long on this planet, so you got to take day to day. You can Google this this formula. I believe it's called the bend allowance formula for sheet metal. I do believe. Oh, that's pi, by the way. I know that's which is, you don't have to do the whole thing. It's just 3.14. Yeah, have at it. Sheet metal's a fun thing. It really is. And a good sheet metal guy can make a lot of money. If I had to do over again, I'd apprenticeship. It's going to be boring. It's going to be horribly boring. It's going to be labor intensive. And there'll be one guy sitting at the machine doing layouts and whatnot and throwing things down. You know what? Stick with it. If it's something that interests you, it's a good trade. It really is. All right, that's all I had. I just wanted to follow up on the last video.